Hey friends, Ben here. And last week, our community groups had a fun night. Woohoo! The week before that, Vinya shared about finding herself when the person and teachings of Jesus took hold in her life. That's powerful stuff. How we respond to Jesus of Nazareth can shape everything about our lives. Here at MSM, we've got our eyes on Jesus. And so this November, we're taking 3 weeks to listen to pieces of perhaps the most famous collection of Jesus' teachings. It's commonly called the Sermon on the Mount. But that title doesn't always help us. You see, when we hear the English word sermon, maybe we think of a 35-minute talk at Blackhawk on a Sunday with Charles Yu or Lynn Beanick or somebody. And they basically have one thing that they want you to remember when they're done. And when we read the Sermon on the Mount, that picture doesn't help us much. A guy named Matthew who spent 3 years with Jesus wrote a book about it, and within that book, there's a spot where he collected a bunch of the things he heard Jesus teach. It's a lot of little lessons that Matthew then put together. Instead of the Sermon on the Mount, we could call it Stuff Jesus Taught. And I think it's the perfect thing for us to look at right now because there are some cool similarities between the groups Jesus taught and us. You see, Jesus was healing sick people and these big crowds started coming to him. And then Matthew says this, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside." You can catch that, that's why it's called Sermon on the Mount, right? Mountainside teaching. And Jesus sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. In other words, Jesus is talking to mixed company. Did you notice that? He's talking to his disciples, people who are committed to learning from him, and he's also talking to the crowds, people who haven't made up their minds about him, but they've got their eyes on him. Y'all, that's us. Some of us are all in with Jesus, and others are still making up our minds. We're like those people on the mountainside, together paying attention to stuff Jesus taught. And there is so much to chew on here in this section of the Bible. In early 2022 at Blackhawk, we did an 11-week sermon series on these teachings, and it could have been more than that because Jesus says some things that turn the way we experience the world upside down. Right now, we're taking just 3 weeks to look at 3 things Jesus taught. I would challenge you on your own time to read all 3 chapters of these teachings sometime. Maybe this Saturday or maybe a different day. You will end up reading stuff that clicks, stuff that's confusing, stuff that makes you think, stuff that turns the way we experience the world upside down. And for 3 weeks of Wednesdays, we'll talk about 3 of these upside down ideas. I'm so excited for this series, and I'm not even here for it. Yeah, through the magic of technology, you're watching my face on a screen, but I'm not on site at any of the community groups for the whole month of November. I'm currently out on a thing called sabbatical. So many churches include a renewal sabbatical for pastors every few years. Time for rest and rejuvenation away from our role in ministry. And I'm probably going to have a fantastic November. I've got a trip to San Antonio planned with a close friend. I want to go to a few UW women's basketball games. I'll get to spend extra time in nature. I'll get to cook more, additional time with God. I want to do some writing just for fun. I hope to go dancing. It's going to be wonderful. I feel blessed. This sabbatical season feels like a gift from God. I'm blessed. God has given me this restful, abundant season, which is ironic because that's the first word that Jesus turns upside down in this series of teachings. He takes the word blessed and uses it in ways that stop you in your tracks. There are 9 of these little phrases called Beatitudes. Here are 3 of them. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me, Jesus says. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Gosh, none of these sound like my trip to San Antonio with Greg. They don't sound like natural ideas about being blessed. Jesus turns stuff upside down. I feel blessed when I'm happy. Jesus says we're blessed when we weep about things that are truly sad. I feel blessed when life is easy and the people around me are getting along. But Jesus says we're blessed when we do the hard work of making peace between folks at odds with each other. I feel blessed when people like me. And Jesus says we're blessed when people insult us for following him. Why does Jesus say this upside down stuff? What's his point? What's he driving at? I'm not going to answer that question for us. What's Jesus' point? You tell me. Y'all are going to go into your small groups, read these 9 sayings, and see if you can tease out why Jesus has all this upside down stuff to say about being blessed. If you think you figure something out, write me an email. I would love to have your thoughts waiting for me in my inbox when I come back in December. I am so excited for my month ahead. And I'm also really excited for you all as we have our eyes on Jesus and pay attention to some of this stuff Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount. Now go have a great conversation in your small group.